morning and welcome to the West Committee Room for the Standing Policy Committee on Property Development Appeals hearing for Monday, March 24th of 2025. I'm Councillor Duncan, chairing today's meeting. I'm joined by Councillor Santos, Schreier, and Wyatt. We have a few items on the appeals hearing agenda today. However, before we start that, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territories, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. All right. I will turn things over to our clerk to lead us through this process.
Okay. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made, however, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak, however, you are not obligated to do so. Item 1 is an appeal under the Planning, Development and Building Fees Bylaw number 66 of 2016 at 339 Salter Street. If the committee would like a brief overview from the public service.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you very much, Ms. Cohen.
Good morning, councillors. Kelly Happychuk for public service. Just for information, 339 Salter and item number 2, 341 Salter, they're pretty much identical in terms of the fees that are that were imposed here. So I will start with 339. It is a residential zone property. The application was submitted by the contractor, and the fees in question are for a failure to finish work within 3 years of permit issuance, and that's a Winnipeg Building Bylaw requirement that if we issue a permit, a building permit, the work needs to be finished and inspected and passed within 3 years, unless extensions have been requested and granted. So in this case, both these permits for 339 and 341, they remained open with no final inspection having been called for after that 3 years. The fee charged is $242 for each address. So between the two of these, we're at $484. For the background, the permit was issued on July 26, 2021. And 3 years later, July 28th, 2024, our system auto-generates the non-compliance fee as the permit had remained open without final inspections, and we had no extension requests on file from the applicant or the owner. The department does send warning emails. The system will automatically do that. Typically, there are 2 or 3 that get done ahead of the pending expiration date, and those warning emails are sent to the applicant. And once the expiry date passed, then another email was sent on July 28th, as I mentioned, that the permit had expired. And in 341's case, that permit was issued June of 2021 and expired in October. There's a typo there where it says June of 2024, but that's a typo. It was June of 2021, and there was a request to extend the deadline, but it was received in October, or almost 2 months after it had expired. So our recommendation is that the Fee Waiver Committee ruled properly and kept the fee in place. Before you today, the applicant is requesting a review of that decision. The public service requests that this committee deny the appeal and confirm the decisions of the Fee Waiver Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Happychuk. Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, why are we hearing appeals about $242? This is nickel and dime stuff. We get out of $242 a year within 1 hour or less in terms of all our time here at this table.
It's the
Do you want to make a motion, Councillor Wyatt?
No, I'm just asking a question. I'm not asking for a motion. I'm asking a question.
We'd have to ask the applicant why they are appealing.
No, why are we allowing the appeal? That's us to us.
The rules currently state and allow for that.
But $242, isn't there should be a minimum that can be appealed?
I don't know a chapter and verse, but the charter says that a decision made by a designated employee is appealable. There's certain levels of it, but in this case, what we're dealing with is a decision made by the subcommittee, the fee waiver committee, which means that it is allowed to be appealed if they're unhappy with the decision.
And why 242? You know, in terms of, is this to act as an incentive to complete the work? Is there a penalty if you don't fulfill your building code or your building permit? Really, a building permit is up to the property owner if they want to build or not.
Well, permits, so the Winnipeg building bylaw states that you have to have your permit completed within 3 years of starting it.
Okay, but if they just choose not to, what's the?
Well, then they get the fee that we're talking about today. And
So the
this
fee
year,
is-
this year's fee is $242, and that's part of the bylaw 66 of 2016. And those fees are reviewed annually and approved by council.
Okay. But I guess the question I have is there a penalty for not completing the work?
Well, the first penalty is this non-compliance fee for failing to finish work.
Okay,
That's the first one.
okay,
Then that triggers in our system that there's still work out there that requires inspections.
okay.
So then we would re-engage or continue to engage with that owner or applicant
Right.
and try and get them into compliance. And that would be between
What is
both
the
the
fee- what is
enforcement
the
unit
fees?
and the inspections unit.
What does the fee structure change to then?
If we had to start writing penalty notices,
Right.
then we're talking about ticketing under the Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act, so it could be $500 to $1,000 per ticket.
And therefore, if they decided not to continue with the project, that's up to them, isn't it?
Yes, but then they have to notify the department that they wish to cancel their project.
Okay,
But if there's work already started, they can't just cancel work that's already started
why not?
because it's already started and it requires completion and inspections.
Unless it's not occupied.
Occupancy doesn't have anything to do with it,
Why?
Counselor.
Occupancy should have everything to do with it. If it's not occupied, then why would we care what kind of renovations have been going on inside? The private property.
That's what the code, the Manitoba Building Code and the Winnipeg Building Bylaw speak to both those things.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand if somebody wants to, if it's not occupied, that would be what type of property is this? Is it residential?
Residential.
Residential. Is it occupied?
I don't know that. We'd have to ask the applicant.
Okay. So there's no leeway under the bylaw or under the law right now with regards to whether residential is occupied or not, whether they should complete their renovations.
If somebody applies for a permit, we assume that they're going to complete the work. They have an obligation actually under the bylaw and under the permit conditions of the permit to complete the work. They signed on for that.
Councillor Shar, you have a question?
Yeah, I see where 341 is. I see where 341 Suite 2 is, but I don't know where 339 is. It can't be on the other side of the street. That's
Are you looking at a map, sir?
oh yeah, I'm looking at a map. Are they together? Are they joined? If you could just explain it. I see 341 being on the northeast corner of College and Salter.
That's,
And
I'm
that's-
guessing that I have to do a little more digging, but my assumption here is that was previously a single family lot that got split, or maybe split's not the
If
right
you're
word,
using
right?
iView, it shows clearly
Yeah,
that both
there's-
addresses are at the same
They're at
property.
the same property,
Okay, so they're the same property, so they just split this.
possibly.
Okay.
And this is the same property owner? Yes. Yeah.
Shall we hear from the appellant?
So the appellant did not register to attend the hearing. They were sent notice, but did not register. So I don't believe anyone in the gallery is here in support in opposition to this appeal. Just confirming no one in the gallery is looking to speak to this matter. Okay.
Okay.
If that's the case, then I'll move some motions.
Compliance.
I'll move that receipt, public representation be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried.
I'll move that the appeal be denied and the decision of the fee waiver committee of the planning property development department be confirmed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is also carried.
I'll move that the appeal, appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. That's item number one. Moving on to item number two.
Please note the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal. Item 2 is an appeal under the Planning, Development, and Building Fees bylaw number 66 of 2016 at 341 Salter Street.
We need any more comment from the public service on this?
The same motion says $242 and the applicant is not here and did not respond, even though
Address the gallery.
Sure, we can just confirm that no one in the gallery is looking to speak in support or in opposition to the appeal with respect to 341 Salter Street. Okay, great.
I move that we see the public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is also carried.
Move that the appeal be denied and the decision of the fee waiver committee of the planning property development department be confirmed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried.
I'll move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal. Item 3 is an appeal under the Planning, Development, and Building Fees bylaw 66 of 2016 at 71 Cindy Clausen Way. If you'd like a brief overview from the public service.
Please.
Good morning, councilors. Subject property is at 71 Cindy Clausen Way, we zoned R1. The fee in question is work without required variance, and the work in context was a deck at the rear of the property. So the owner hired a contractor to construct the deck at the subject property. They made an application on behalf of the owner. The homeowner believed that all appropriate steps have been followed. The homeowner is requesting relief of penalty fees on the subject variance. As of March of 2024, a development permit exemption was applied to single level open decks in the R1 and R2 district. Applicants wishing to construct a deck can now proceed directly to the building permit stage. Despite no development permit, it still needs to comply with the zoning bylaw. A declaration is submitted as part of the building permit that indicates compliance with the zoning bylaw. The applicant's contractor did provide a declaration indicating compliance. Upon inspection of the deck, it was noticed that an adequate rear yard was not provided. The applicant appealed the application of penalty fees on the variance, which we charged $693 for that fee. In recognition that this is a new program and it may be unfamiliar with some contractors, the fee waiver committee did waive the penalty fee and instead applied the standard variance fee of $422. So we issued a refund of $249.90 to the owner in January of 2025. And so our request is that this fee waiver be maintained, this decision be maintained.
Thank you.
You're moving, you want that the fee waiver be maintained, and who's appealing the fee waiver?
And in all honesty, I'm not clear on what the applicant is requesting in terms of additional action. So they did ask us, could we waive the penalty fee, which we agreed with that request. So we did waive that $249. But based on their submission, they indicate that they'd like to appeal the decision, but they don't identify what further action to be taken. It's unclear to us.
What was the issue with the deck?
Yeah, it's instead of a 25-foot rear yard, it has a 13 and a little bit foot rear yard.
Okay. And so what does that mean?
Basically, if you have a deck in the rear yard that's above a certain height, it has to meet the rear yard setback like a house does. And in this case, if you're able to look at the aerial image of these properties, you can see that.
Is that on the file?
No.
Well, then I'm not looking at it. I look at what's in front of me.
Okay, fair point. Well, I
In
can
the future,
describe
if
it.
you want us to look at it, include the photos.
Sure, I can describe it if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have a very tight rear yard setback that basically makes compliance impossible.
Compliance with what?
They don't have 25 feet from the rear of the house to the rear property line.
And what does that offer in terms of lack of parking ability, lack of ability to put in the garage, lack of,
You put a deck back there, you're gonna need a variance.
okay.
Variance for
Because
setback.
those are the rules.
Yes, and the lot is tight and the way they built the house.
So the lot is tight, meaning it's hard to park now because of the deck there, or?
No, just the depth of the lot. They put the house.
If the deck is under 2 feet high, then it doesn't, 2 feet or less, I believe it is, then it doesn't require a permit.
That is above that.
The deck is.
So it's,
So all they'd have to do is drop the deck.
in theory, yep, they could, or like I said, they can apply for variance, which in this case is a reasonable request. They didn't know.
Are they here today?
They're not.
They have submitted written submission that says the process to obtain the variance after the deck was fully built was quite costly, as we were required to involve the land surveyor and also pay for other requested documents. We kindly ask to review your decision and lower the fee for our variance application. Thank you for your consideration to this request.
They are applying for a variance.
They haven't obtained it, yeah, and they paid the,
They have obtained it.
yes.
Okay.
I understand why the public service is saying they're not clear on what they want. I don't know what to read of that when it says, please lower the variance fee. I'm not sure if they're asking for a reduction in cost of the variance or if they're just okay with the going from 693 to 443.
Were they advised that a 2-foot deck height is not required a variance? Were they advised that?
No, given the deck was built, right?
Oh, so this came after the fact.
Yeah, that hence the penalty fee was built.
I'm asking that to lower the fee for a variance application. How much is the variance application?
A standard fee was $443.10.
That's the 404, what is it, sorry?
$443.10.
So that's the fee, that's the variance application. And what's the penalty?
So with the penalty fee, it was $693.
And you waive the penalty.
Yes.
So they're asking for the application. Okay, I think I see what they're asking for. A reduction in the fee of the variance application.
Can we see if there's anybody here to speak officially?
Okay, just confirming no one in the gallery is looking to speak or in support or in opposition to this appeal. Great.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we have a motion here.
Yeah, I'll move that the public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye. I'll move that the appeal be denied and the decision of the fee waiver committee of the planning property development department be confirmed, and with the supporting argument that number one, I understand that the applicant has requested this, however, they're not present here today, so therefore, in terms of the financial impact on them, I think that has to be taken into consideration if their presence is here or not. We have recognized their communication to us. However, I think it's also the major argument is we do want citizens to apply for proper variances. At that point, the applicant could have been informed that a 2-foot high deck was required to have a variance if they had lowered it. The stair is in the back, but they didn't have that opportunity because they didn't apply for the variance in the first place. I think it's important for our committee to uphold the system, which is to require proper variances and building permits to be pulled. And therefore, if we start waiving these fees, then why have the system at all? Anyway, those are my comments.
Okay, and just for clarification, decision of 440, whatever change will then be implemented with this.
Well, they paid
It's
it
the
already.
difference in the two.
I
They
believe
paid it already,
443 is the end result.
Yeah.
443 is the end result. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Call the question on the motion by Councillor Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried.
The appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on.
Please note that this committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal. Item 4 is an appeal under the Planning, Development and Building Fees bylaw number 66 of 2026 at 1118 Alfred Avenue. The committee would like a brief overview from the public service.
Sure. Looks like Councillor Wyatt will be happy here. $182 now. Let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. $182 is the fee in question here for failing to call for a reinspection of a defect within 30 days of that defect having been identified. So that is a Winnipeg building bylaw standard. And in this 1118 Alfred, it's a residential zone property. And a request for an inspection was made for October 18th, 2024 by the contractor. And during this inspection, a defect was noted. 30 days was given to correct that defect and call for a reinspection. A month later, on November 19th, a non-compliance fee of $182 was automatically generated by our system because that 30-day compliance window had expired. A request to extend the deadline was received on December 13th by the department, and that was granted, and a new compliance date of January 12th was imposed. Just so when I prepared this report, February 28th, the defect at that time had not been corrected, and I'm looking in the system today and it's still not corrected. So the fee waiver committee reviewed the details of the application, rendered their decision, and public service requested that decision be confirmed by this committee today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Happycheck. I just have some questions regarding the page 2 of 2 under describe the reasons for the waiver fee request in as much detail as possible. It sounds like this was initially inspected by one inspector who gave direction to fix a opening hardware for the basement egress window. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then another inspector went out when this applicant called for inspection and disagreed with the original inspector's assessment?
That I'm not sure, but I do have staff on the call. So perhaps I can refer to Mr. Chuby, the chief.
Okay. And
Inspector.
then a third inspector, the supervisor, was called in to again make an assessment and agreed with the second. I mean, like I hear this all the time where multiple inspectors go in and give multiple opinions. So yeah, sure, let's hear.
Good morning, Gord Chuby, Chief Housing Inspector. Just looking into the file here. So the original deficiency was identified on October 16th by the original inspector about the hardware of the window. There was an email to the supervisor about 2 days later indicating what would be acceptable from the building code for the latch of the egress window. On November 15th, a senior inspector, a second inspector, went out to site with the original inspector. Together they went. And at that point, it still didn't meet the code requirements. Both of them and our senior inspector tried to explain to the contractor. And yeah, it still didn't comply to the code, so they couldn't pass it. So it wasn't a change in decision of the original inspector. It was an explanation, and the contractor did not like that explanation.
Okay. So the information that we're provided here by the appellant is that he was given, or he or she was given, I just want to get my words straight here. Explained, spoke with a Carlos and explained what needed to be done. Mike corrected the situation as per Carlos's instruction and booked the inspection before the due date. Carlos came back for the re-inspection with another inspector, Mr. Bonner, who disagreed with Carlos's initial assessment and failed it again. At that point, we did not have enough time to complete the changes before the completion date due to the first unrequested inspection. Then the supervisor comes in and he suggests we submit an extension request, which Mike did. Another inspector granted us an extension until 01/12/25. So was there direction given initially that this is what you're supposed to do and that was changed upon second inspection?
According to the notes, no.
Yes, the appellant is here.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Okay. If the committee would like to hear from the appellant in support of the appeal, Nora Valencia is with us today. Nora, we've just asked you to start your video, but I see that you're not connected to audio. Nora, can you hear us? Okay. We've asked you to start your video, Nora, and I see that you're not connected to audio. So I'm not sure if you're able to hear us.
I have another question just for the public service while we wait. Hopefully that's brought online. So after this appeal is concluded one way or the other, is the work complete, or does the applicant have more time now with extension to complete the work?
Second here.
There are issues.
Hi, Nora. We're just going to get a quick response from the public service here, and then we'll get some of your comments if you've been listening.
The comply by date is April 13th, 2025. So they have time to correct it. I don't know if it has been corrected.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Nora, welcome.
Hi, Nora. Can you hear us? You're not connected to audio. She's not connected to the audio. I've sent her an email, but she won't. I don't
Can't
think
hear
she
us?
can hear us. No. Nora, can you hear us?
Oh, it looks like she's thinking about it.
Nora, unfortunately, you're not connected to audio with Zoom. So you can't hear us and we can't hear you.
Nora, are you able to hear us? We can see you. Perhaps if I give her a wave here, Nora.
Nora, we can't hear you.
Nora, are you able to hear us?
She's not connected.
Okay. Okay.
I prefer to move.
Well, she's coming in here. There we go. Nora, can you hear us?
Hi, Nora, you'll need to unmute yourself, please. Nora, can you please unmute there you go.
Thank you.
Sorry. Just having
Hi, Nora.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Unfortunately, you weren't able to hear our discussion that took place regarding this appeal that you've submitted. However, we are looking at this $182 penalty for not correcting the deficiency with your egress window in the basement.
Yeah.
We just had questions of the public service regarding any instructions that were given to you or your contractor. Are you able to clarify for us? We read through your comments provided here that inspector came out and provided direction on how to correct the latch, the hardware, opening hardware, and then another inspector attended and did not approve of that, and then a supervisor communicated with you. Can you provide us any more detail on that so we can make it?
Yeah, that's what happened. Actually, it was October 18. The schedule for that day was the inspection of our electrical, the electrical that was just been submitted by the inspector that needs to be fixed. But since he's also the person who will conduct the inspection for the other stuff, for the window, so he do it at the same time without my contractor knowing it. But we allowed it to do the inspection at that time. So when he commented about how to fix the problem on the window at the basement, I just relayed the information to my contractor, and then I just advised him to directly contact the inspector, and there they have the communication of what exactly needs to be done. So we tried to fix the window, and it's just so happened that the other inspector who go with Carlo that time didn't agree on how my contractor fixed the window at the basement. So he says that it needs to be fixed the way the window was manufactured, because like there's a latch on the window, but the functionality of that one cannot be used because I think it there's a part of the window that hinders the latch to be used. So the inspector just informed my contractor to just like make an adjustment so we can like there's a function we could like but lock the window in case of emergency, so there will be no hindrance to get out. So that's what we did. And then the second inspector who goes with Carlos says, no, that won't work. You should fix it on the window itself. That's why we try to like make an adjustment now to make the functionality of the latch on the window work, which is my contractor did. And we cannot schedule yet the inspection of that one because we have an appeal about the $182 penalty.
Okay, so is, in your opinion, is the latching mechanism fixed to the satisfaction of direction given by whatever inspector last attended?
Yeah, right now, yes.
Okay, and if I may, is this your personal residence? Is this a rental residence? Is this, what is this?
It's a personal residence. We've been living here for about 15 years now, 15, 16 years.
Okay, and what triggered you to do this work?
Because December 21, 2016, our house got into fire. So there's like all the water from the main floor like drip down to the basement. That's why everything has to be fixed, the insulation, the electrical, the plumbing, which we comply. And I tried to every time when during the construction, the restoration of our house was being done, I tried to visit the contractor doing it. And every time like there's an inspection by the city about the installation, the electrical, the plumbing, I tried to check with my contractor if it's already been inspected, and he showed me like there's a sticker that the part of the house has been inspected. So I was confident that time that everything is doing fine.
Yes.
And then when the house was turned over to us, 2017, all along I know that everything is like good and okay for us like to go back. So we didn't have any issues at all from the time we go back until just recently when I received, I think about April, when I received a notification from the city that there's a pending inspection to be done. So I was surprised it took 5 years for the city to get back to us that our permit is not yet closed. That's the time only when we know that there's a problem about the permit at the basement. That they said there's no permit that the basement has to be renovated or restored. And then at that time, we also know that the permit that our contractor acquired from the city pertains to the whole house, the main floor and the basement. But just recently, we know that that's not the case. Recently, they said that the permit on the main floor is different from the permit when the restoration of the basement is being done.
Okay. Well, thank you for the additional information there.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions at this time. I don't see any other questions from my committee members, so we will have an opportunity to ask more questions of the public service. Otherwise, one of the counselors here will move a motion to rule on your appeal. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope that our appeal will gonna be being given consideration to the situation that we're having right now.
Just confirming that no one in the gallery is looking to speak in support of or in opposition to this appeal. Okay, if there are questions for the public service.
Okay, seeing no other questions. Motions?
Go ahead, Counselor. It's your word.
Sure, I'll move that the receipt of public representation be concluded.
All in favor?
I'll move that the appeal be allowed and the decision of the fee waiver committee, PP&D department be canceled.
Favor? Aye.
Can I just confirm, Councilor Santos, you'd like to move the appeal be allowed, the decision be canceled, and the fees be reduced from 182 to zero? Okay.
All in favor of that as worded by the clerk? And that is passed.
Okay, I move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Please note the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal.
Thank you.
Item 5 is an appeal under the City of Winnipeg Building Bylaw number 4555 of 87 at 737 Alexander Avenue. Please note additional communications were received in support of the appeal after the agenda was published, which has been distributed to all members of the committee. If you'd like a brief overview from the public service.
Yes. Okay. This year. Okay, 737 Alexander is a residential property. The applicant in here is the property owner. There are a number of related folders, meaning that there's the one in question here is for an order. And under appeal today is the order that we issued, our department issued. So the background on this is that 3 a.m. on Friday, October 25th, 2025, a fire occurred in this residence. Fire crews attended and found a well-involved fire, heavy smoke, flames, etc., coming from the house.
Just a quick question. When was the fire?
October 25th, 2024. Sorry,
Just on a point of note, there is an error.
there is a
on the
typo
report.
as well. Sorry.
2025.
My apologies and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So anyway, fire department attended and put the flames out. On November 5th, 2024, the Enforcement Services Unit of PP&D arranged for safety fencing to be erected at the site. The owner was notified of that fencing via a phone call from our department at 10:24 in the morning, as well as having been sent an email that same day. 20 days later, November 25th, a building inspector was on site to conduct an assessment inspection. And that inspector prepared a letter to the owner, which was then hand delivered to the owner at their residence because of the Canada Post mail strike at that time. Essentially, the copy of the text of that letter identified that the house was damaged in a fire and that any reconstruction, redevelopment, or demolition of the site is subject to current code and bylaw, and that the proper permits would be required. And if there was anything to be salvaged, a structural engineer's report would have to speak to that. Moving forward, to be aware, the building inspector's notes, they spoke with the owner, Joan V, who advised that her husband is handling the permitting process. January 22nd of this year, 2025, we reviewed our system for any indication of permit application, whether it was a demolition or a building permit, and we found none. Therefore, a bylaw violation notice was written and mailed to them through regular mail. For the information, City of Winnipeg Charter, Section 276(1) sub 2, states that a notice or other document sent by ordinary mail to a person is deemed to be received by that person on the 3rd day after it is mailed. February 25th, an officer from my department attended to 737 Alexander, observed no change from previous inspections. No permits were found in the system as well.
What was that date, sorry?
February 25th.
Thank you.
Of this year. The following day, on the 26th, we drafted the unsafe order for the property. And on the 27th, that order was then sent out via registered mail, regular mail, and email to the owner. And then on March 3rd of this year, the owner indicated their desire to appeal this order. Our order essentially is for mitigating unsafe conditions. As I mentioned, this house was hit by a fire, and as a result of that fire, the building incurred structural damage to the roof and wall systems. It compromised the structural integrity of the building. The building is deemed to be in an unsafe condition and posing a hazard or safety risk to people and animals in and around and adjacent to that property. And accordingly, they were ordered to either to do one of three things. You can install safety fencing, which we ended up doing for them. And then until the appropriate required development, building, or other permits have been obtained, no work can commence until those permits are obtained. And you can either pick option 1 or option 2. Option 1 is get the services of a structural engineer that says that this building is okay, and then you can carry on with your repairs. Or option 2 is demolish if the building is not structurally sound. Neither of those options have been exercised yet. So we're asking for this order to be upheld. And we would carry on our work from there.
Thank you, Mr. Amchuk. Councilor Wyatt.
In order to deal with all these buildings that have had fires, I know you're looking at a lot of them. We've had briefings on before, Kelly, so thank you. Is the department now is planning waiving the requirements that have been stated in the past pertaining to demolition? In the past, there was a need for individuals to file a plan approval for a site plan for redevelopment of the site prior to the issuance of a demolition permit. Is that stopped?
Stopped isn't the right word through you, Chair. I would say, Councillor, that what we've done is we've streamlined the process so that request doesn't have to come to this committee for approval. That request can be done in-house by our planners. So that
What
request,
request is that?
if the owner says, can I just demolish the
Right.
building without a rebuild plan at this time?
Right.
We can handle that request in-house without having that. The decision used to have to come to this committee
Oh, really?
for a final decision.
Oh.
And so what we were able to do, I want to say it's at least 3 years, maybe 4 ago, is that we were able to transition that to a decision by the area planner.
And what has been the history of that? in terms of
It works. It works.
So have we been waiving the requirement for a plan consistently to allow for the demolition?
When a request comes through, we have.
And so how does an individual applying for a demolition permit, if they're informed at the time of applying for a demolition permit that they have to have a plan for reconstruction, and are they informed as well that the option exists and they don't have to do that?
Yes, and it's also available on our website.
Okay. And has this individual indicated their willingness at this point to either demolish or repair?
We're not aware.
Not aware. Okay. And have they been informed of they've been informed fully of everything inside this order?
They received a copy of it.
Copy of it, which option 1, option 2?
Yes.
Okay. Good. And what sort of mitigation is taking place right now on the site in light of the fact that you got a burnt out building?
I believe I have some photographs attached here at the later last pages. It's boarded and fenced.
Boarded and fenced securely?
Well, it's a 6-foot security fence, or it's as secure as it gets.
Yeah.
Without, and it meets the requirement of the code.
What are our powers to be able to go in here and demolish if this is up here? And this is now October of the last year. We're almost now 6 months of the structure standing here. Why can't we just simply go in there and demolish and put it on the tax bill?
Because we have the charter that we have to adhere to.
Well,
So,
let's change the damn charter.
well, I don't like saying these types of things, but that's not my department. I don't change the charter.
How do we change the charter to give us the power to go in here and demolish? I mean, we got, and put it on the tax bill, like, I mean, these things should be looked after like right away. I mean, if this was in my neighborhood, if this was my ward, I mean, I'd be going ballistic.
Well, I don't know for certain, but I believe it's got something to do with
Property
a
rights.
council decision would have to be made and then approach the province, who would have to change the charter because it is provincial legislation.
Yeah, but we have done that in the past, you know, so. Especially with
But that's the best answer I
vacant
can
and
give right
derelict
now.
buildings, yeah. Well, it's a good idea.
When was the,
Would the public service support something like that? You think? An issue?
Again, that's a little higher than my pay grade.
when was the fencing erected?
November.
Hey, could be mine. I had the same thing.
Where was that fire?
I didn't mean.
Oh, November 5th.
November
Yeah,
5th?
the fire was the October 25th and November 5th, we put the fencing up.
And when was it boarded?
That I'm not certain.
I would support them. That'd be brought.
I'd have to look that one up.
Okay, I'll leave that with
I
you.
know,
Just
I know
asking
the
if it was boarded.
photograph has a date on it.
Yeah, I see February.
So prior to that, I suppose.
All right, we have an opportunity to hear from somebody who might be here.
Yes, the appellant is here. Alan Jake Bizot is joining us today. You can have a seat at the front of the table there. And you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, by the way, for allowing me to present here. I have
presented my case in writing. I can read through. I just wanted to be made available for questions. To be honest, this is a very intimidating process to me. I do the best I can, but I'm not a very good public speaker. So, I can reread what you have there, but there are some certain falsities that have been presented that is the crux of my case.
I'll leave it up to you. I appreciate you coming in person. I know that this isn't many people have expressed that this isn't exactly the most relaxing environment, so I appreciate that as well. It's up to you if you would like to read through your submissions, or
Sure.
you can make you can say whatever you'd like as long as you're not impugning anyone here at this point in time. And if you do, we'll just stop you and redirect you. So it's up to you, whatever presentation you'd like to make, but you do have the clock running here.
Sure. Okay. So I'll try my best here. The appeal submitted pursuant to Section 189 of the Winnipeg Charter Act. My concern centers on the fact that I did not receive. Sorry, I'm just going to. I can't really. My vision's not as good as, so I'm just going to try and I'm nervous as well. So, the bottom line is I did not receive. I received a copy, I believe, on February, and it showed a copy, February 27th, I think. It showed a copy of the original handwritten violation. I didn't receive that. And the frustration that I have, not only in this particular case, but and also in the past, is the consistency of methods of communication. Anywhere from emails to a letter sent regular mail, and then registered mail where I have to go to the post office and sign for it, to signing there at the door to receive communication. That has been a really big issue over the past, and in particular in this case, I never received any hand delivered original notice. So in essence, it was extremely surprising to get a letter that I owed, I believe, $1,200 plus administration fees, and I just didn't receive the first one in the first place. And I would note every other communication that I have received, other than that one that was not registered, was registered. So the one on, I believe it was February 27th, was registered, signed, and I signed for it. And ever since then, I have, in a couple of weeks, I assume you'll be receiving another appeal for me from the same on a different issue, and I received registered. So it's been consistent ever since. However, the original violation, or have to have it was a guidance to have a permit in place by a certain date. I did not receive that. And so that is at the heart of my complaint here and my request for an appeal in this case. And I have if in that correspondence I replied directly to the issuing officer asking for a response, to possibly work this out. He chose not to, and then I went ahead with the appeal. And so essentially, the original document stating that I needed to have a permit in place by a certain date that was not received. And as far as I understand, there is no evidence, because that's what I wanted to ask the issuing officer. I never received it. Do you have any signatures showing that I received this? And no response. And so I feel that it's just, in that case, it's unfair. It's a fairness thing, right? Like, I have no problem complying with it, but I didn't know that was in place. So at the end of the day, I received a penalty of almost $1,300. That is completely avoidable as far as I was concerned.
Okay, if those are your comments, I'm not looking to cut you off, but we do have some questions.
Sure.
Okay, Councillor Wyatt.
So, Mr. Rizzo, this is the one here that you said you did not receive. This is the copy we have before us. This is the one dated January 22nd, 2025.
Okay.
Issue date, January 22nd, comply date, February 21st. I'm assuming that's the one, because the second one that you got by a registered mail was the one indicating the fee, correct?
Yeah, so the one on, so sorry, the last date that you stated.
Well, the first one you would have received was issued by Jarrett Seidler. His badge number is 5929.
Right, and that was handwritten.
The handwritten one.
Yes, that's the one I didn't receive.
I see. And how was this issued?
Via mail.
By mail. Okay, and mail being what address, I guess, would have been went
To the home address. Not this, not the address in question.
to.
I don't believe the applicant lives here, I believe he resides somewhere else.
So what was the home address it was sent to?
I don't think I can put that on the record.
Are you prepared to let that be for the record so we know what maybe it was sent to the wrong address?
It was, my home address is 3 Scammell Road.
Free what?
Sorry. 3 Scammell Road. SCAMMEL.
Scam, okay. Is that the address? Yeah, okay. And just out of curiosity, what bylaw vote, we don't issue this in registered letter? We don't do this via registered mail?
Yes, this was sent by all 3. Oh, sorry, this one was sent by regular mail?
Regular mail.
Yes.
Why would we not issue that in registered mail, knowing that we're warning them about our fee pending?
The department, if I may, please, Mr. Chair, the department took the view that this bylaw violation notice was actually the second warning, because the first one was the fire letter that was issued in November and hand delivered to the residents. And was handed to another person at the residence.
Handed to the other person by Canada Post.
No, by our department.
Okay.
Our
And was it
staff.
signed for at that moment of hand
Not
delivery?
signed for. No, but it was hand delivered and acknowledged. And the person who received it said that they would speak to, I'm assuming, Mr. Bissell.
Just out of curiosity, why are we not using registered mail for these sorts of things all the time?
We generally do.
Okay.
At the time of the first delivery, there was a strike in place, so we were doing hand deliveries
I see.
at that point. The second
but-
delivery, the requirement of the charter is that we can deliver it by regular mail, and it's considered delivered after 3 days.
Knowing how many fires we're having and everything also, maybe it might be, but I hear what you're saying about the strike. But the second one, it was not sent by registered mail either, though.
The bylaw violation notice was not, but the order was.
So the order was, but then the order kicks in. The fee kicks in.
Well, so the fees that are attached to the order are administrative fees.
Yeah.
It's for the cost of preparing the order and for the cost of registering the caveat. Those are the 2 fees that add up to the total.
Right. But I'm just thinking.
We can only apply the large fee. Sorry for interrupting.
No.
We can only apply that large fee when we've issued a warning previously.
Right.
So there are hundreds of instances where we don't apply that fee because we go straight to an order on a property rather than giving a warning and then waiting. In this case, there were warnings, there were communications given. That's why that fee was imposed. May I interject?
There's, so Councillor Wyatt, I assume that question is also for the applicant, so you can respond.
Well, yeah, what is your intent to do here, sir? What do you want to do? This one?
Essentially, I want this done properly. I want this.
You want to knock down, demo, or what do you?
So, very interesting previous comments as to your questions there. I'm put in a situation with dealing with insurance and receiving money, and so the delay on those things, I just don't have out of pocket $30,000 to $60,000. So that is the obvious delay.
The property was insured?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
And so there's some back and forth there and so on and so forth. And especially when you're dealing with multiple insurance companies on one claim. With London, for example, is in London and the other 2 are in Winnipeg. So logistically, it's difficult to.
Why is there multiple insurance companies?
Oh, I'm sorry?
Why is there multiple insurance companies?
In my experience, that's not uncommon for certain residences in certain areas of the city to be co-insured.
Oh, you're talking about co-insurance.
Yeah.
There's one policy.
One policy, but 3,
Okay.
yeah, so I have to deal with 3 different
Yeah,
companies.
no, I'm very familiar with it. So then, and is there any issue here of arson? Is there,
That appears to be the case,
and
yes.
that's what's holding this up probably with the insured.
Yes, and also, I'd also challenged the fact that the strike was over by that time.
No, it was
Mail was
recognized-
back
He referred to the first notice.
that's what I'm referring to. Yes.
I don't. when was it?
November, if it was in November of,
It went on through Christmas.
yeah, just straight,
About 3 weeks before. I think.
actually, I think I included that. My
It
understanding.
was
straight
in
with
November, beginning early December. It went on.
I have a question for you, sir. At the end of the day, if you're looking to demo, regardless of if you do demo or not, why have you not sought the permit? I believe it's 300 and something bucks for the demo
So.
and sit on it.
Right, and so I actually don't have a problem with that. However, there's in talking to my insurance adjuster, and I'm still in the works of this. There is I don't know if it's a policy change or what have you, but you can't just apply. I can't go and apply for a permit, which I thought I could, and so I can't. And that is dependent on whether it's and I may be getting the terminology, a wet tear down versus a not. And from what I understand, that is whether asbestos is involved. And so I have dealt with a situation like this in years past, and I was able to go to get the permit rather easily. This has changed that. And so apparently you have to have a company on a list in order to apply for that permit for you. And so this is the conundrum I'm in. And so I'm now trying to get a testing done as it makes a big difference as to the demolition costs. And that has taken time due to the companies out there that have time to fit me into that schedule, so on and so forth. And so it's been a logistical nightmare, to be honest. And so I'm in the process of that. So yeah, this is one issue, and again, you'll be seeing me again in a couple of weeks because it's on a similar but different issue on this particular property. And so I'm trying to stick it to this issue right now. That's where I'm at. I'm not opposed to working, but I did not receive the initial letter. I made what I thought reasonable effort to contact the adjoint officer to get clarity because I did not receive it. And every other piece of communication has been registered, signed for. This one has been so potentially just hand delivered. I will also note that I never received anything from the fire department as well until within the last 2 weeks. And they said my account was in arrears, and that was the first time I have received that as well. So I don't know if that has a bearing particularly on this, but I think he had referenced it. And so I just received a letter yesterday that I have a caveat on that property. So another surprise.
What is the fee for the fire department? What's that about?
That's the fire and protection bylaw.
How much is that? Is that separate?
1,900, I think, or almost 2,000.
That's on top of this.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not part of our department. So,
Yeah.
So what is that? What is that? He's inspected by the fire department too?
I really can't speak to that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's another matter. We'll
Yeah.
deal with this one. I do have another question, but Councillor Wyatt, please go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, first of all, Ms. Rizzo, thank you for coming. And you explained it quite well, number one. Number two, I think you're sincere. You want to do something. I think number three, I see what you're dealing with in regards to your insurers. And the fact that the minute that the asbestos matter sticks up, you're right, it makes it difficult for you to apply for that demolition permit. Just out of curiosity, your insurers are aware, I'm assuming, that there is an inherent liability also pertaining to the property as it stands right now. That the policy technically you have, I'm assuming, is still in effect. And that as the property stands right now, it also presents itself as a liability to them in terms of physical harm, mostly on the third party liabilities.
Right.
They're aware of that?
That's a good question. I have multiple houses with them in the same policy, so I have to make an assumption at this point.
Right.
But I wasn't prepared to.
Well, you might want to put that in writing to them, just a suggestion, so that and pictures, so that they're just aware of it. It might help you move your file along with regards to.
I
the
see.
broker might want to do that, but
Thank you.
I guess the other part of it is, you might have heard me comment earlier that in light of the fact that, we have issues like this where, where private property owners are wrangling with their insurance company, where we have issues where asbestos come in, that if we had a system whereby the city were to go in and do the demolition just for the sake of neighborhood safety, right? Not saying that you can't rebuild on the property, but if it is a demo, if it's a total loss, which this is.
Yeah.
Then, the city has a system, if the city had a system in place to go in and do a demolition, just applying the cost thereof onto your tax bill, that would then be covered by your insurance policy in the event it kicks in. Would you welcome something like that to make it easier for you?
I would not, only because the insurance companies, as I have found out, the policy that I have in place, are not aware of the changes, I guess, between specifically the asbestos issue, what versus, because in my policy, there's supposed to be coverage for that, but not for for a tear down. I'm kind of just speaking loosely here. A $30,000 tear down is substantially, it would be kind of the norm, which they covered in this policy, but they didn't know about the policy change within the city. And so now that could be a $60,000. And so if that came on my tax bill as a $30,000 bill, the insurance would have accounted for that, but they would not have accounted for a $60,000 charge.
Well, they might.
Otherwise, I would definitely welcome that, but that's the issue there.
Just a final question from me on this. So you understand that, the order states you have two options at this point. Essentially, get all the pieces in place to do the repairs or assess the property to do the repairs, or option two, get your demo permit by April 3rd and have the site cleaned by May 3rd.
Right.
So I'm assuming, and I'll let you answer, and just looking at the orders to follow this timeline at 737 Alexander, the fence is up, you don't have any permits, and you have to engage one of the following two options, which I just said: get the work done to fix it up or tear it down. So I'm assuming with your ongoing discussions with your insurer that you're not going to have this site demoed by May 3rd.
I will not. No.
Okay. What would be the timeline that you would have this site demoed by?
I'm waiting on I'm waiting to engage on a company that will go in and produce a report to show that there is or is not asbestos, so that it can be a wet tear down versus a dry tear down.
So timeline wise, because if we're going to do any sort of give you more time option,
Right.
need to know timelines.
I wish I could give you, but I don't have. I haven't. I'm trying to engage. I'm still in that process. Okay. So that's where it's at. That's where it's at right now.
I'm getting a signal here from Mr. Happy.
The public service, Mr. Chair, is willing to work with timelines as long as we're kept abreast that an extension is required or requested. We can definitely work with the applicant on those extensions.
I just, what I don't want to have is yet another burnt out property sitting in the neighborhood here forever and ever. So I know, to Councillor Wyatt's comments, you seem sincere in wanting to deal with this. I know that dealing with insurance agencies isn't just straightforward. Here's my claim, and they sign off. I don't know, Mr. Havlicek, if you'd have a suggestion for the committee on timeline to extend to?
Knowing the difficulty in getting environmental assessments done, I would suggest 3 or 4 months down the road, and have the applicant request further extensions if they run into trouble.
And ultimately, this lies in the Point Douglas neighborhood, so.
What does this involve now?
I believe there's only so many companies that do the work, and they're quite active,
Really?
quite busy.
But okay, this is based on what regulations now pertaining to,
Workplace health and safety,
and how do we know if asbestos is actually here or not?
through the testing.
Through the which?
Through the testing.
And has that been confirmed on this site?
No, he's still waiting to engage with a company to do the work, I believe.
Oh, so we need a private company to be able to go in and do the testing in the first place.
Correct. Yeah.
But it can't be that complicated in terms of whether it's asbestos or not.
These are the regulations of a provincial agency, workplace health and safety.
Are you aware, sir, if, of companies that provide this service?
Their names,
No, I'm not saying for you to list. It's a yes or no question.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So this is a matter of making phone calls, setting up appointments, having somebody come out.
which is already in progress, but, and to the gentleman's point, getting responses back from them is
Okay,
even,
so if the committee would be willing to provide a, and I just want the right word in here from the clerk,
An extension of time?
an extension of time on this matter to be dealt with, would you be willing to communicate with the department to give them, I don't know, Mr. Havlicek, what would be reasonable for updates, weekly, monthly?
a monthly for us in this
Monthly?
case, until we know what's going on at there as far as.
So if we set a date for you to say it has to be done by,
Well,
go ahead, answer my question, then we'll go to. Sorry.
if deemed appropriate, if 3 to 4 months was an extension that I could work with, I'm fairly confident I can have answers and progress in that time period. I have no problem. Jared is this person I've been conversing back and
Sure.
forth with Jared on that.
And
and
once
work-
you have that answer of what type of demo it is, you will commit to getting your permit?
Right.
And
Yeah,
deal with
exactly.
it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I saw Councillor Schreier's hand go up.
Yeah, Mr. Havlicek did say 3 months with extensions. Looks like we're coming to consensus. It's nice to see.
I guess the question I'd have is the fee. You want us to waive the fee as well as part of that, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask.
With a prejudice.
What I mean? The fee is not subject to the appeal, I was just told by the clerk. What does that mean?
Well,
I mean, the fee is not part of the appeal process. This appeal is specific to the corrective action required by the order.
So he has to appeal the fee separately if he wants to.
the fees are administrative. They're not subject to appeal.
I heard any administrative decision is appealable based on the charter earlier.
I don't know the language here.
Yeah.
But according to what the department has been directed, administrative fees, and there are 2 of them under our fees and charges bylaw.
Right.
Both of them are before you on this. One's the administrative fee for the preparation of the order. The other is for the registration of the caveat. Those 2 fees are required to be paid when an order is issued.
We can't say some fees are appealable and others aren't.
Well,
It's either one or the other.
not to tell you, Counselor, how to go about it, but if the order was canceled, then the fees are canceled.
Oh, I see.
And that is my request because of the order is in my opinion null and void because the original document wasn't delivered.
So just out of curiosity, this is kind of an aside, but I was on the phone with somebody. You sound like you want a number of properties, rental properties, is that correct?
Yeah.
I was on the phone with somebody who also does. How difficult has it been lately to get insurance? And secure insurance and in terms of your rates and what's going on there?
I have been,
There is something happening in parts of the city right now where there's fires being lit and all sorts of stuff going on. It's not being reported at all in terms of the media.
it has changed. I have the luxury of having most of my houses for a number of years and so they're almost paid off. I've invested in those houses, so I've been able to
Demonstrate that to the insurer.
yes, yeah, new roofs, new everything, yeah. So
To consider it a better risk.
right.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
But for clarity purposes, the document that I received and the appeal that I am here today about is most definitely about those fees.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think we hear what you're saying. So.
Okay, so he just said he's here to appeal the fees. We're told those fees aren't appealable. So what is the nature of this appeal?
So
We
what
can
we heard just
cancel the
now
order.
from Mr.
Cancel the order.
Havlicek
Cancel
was
the
that
order.
if
Reissue.
we cancel the order, then that applies to the fees.
But we should reissue the deadlines based on what Mr. Havlicek is suggesting.
So, yeah, and to that question, if we are to do an extension of time and the extension of time is not met, is the department able to reissue these fees?
Mr. Chair, if the order is canceled, then there's no extension.
No,
There's
they
nothing that
gotta
applies.
reissue it.
What I would propose is that given that Mr. Bizot's clear honesty, dedication to finding a solution here, if the committee chooses to cancel the order, what we'd be willing to do in the department is work with him over the next number of months. And if we, for whatever reason, don't see progress, we could reissue another order.
And that ultimately, should it be appealed, would come back to us, and we will be very familiar with this file and probably not so accommodating at that point in time,
And-
potentially.
I would also suggest every piece of communication would be registered. So I would not
You
have
could
an
make that
appeal to
happen.
make.
And separate from this file, but related to this file, Kelly, is there any kind of tagger team going on right now between the city and the province about what's going on in the inner city and the parts of the downtown with these fires?
Yeah.
Is there any group that have been assembled to start
Sorry.
looking at legislation?
Before you answer there, we probably shouldn't be doing this back and forth. So those are your comments, I would assume?
They are, unless you
Okay,
have
thank
any more
And then I'll
questions.
just ask you to go back to the gallery. We'll continue a discussion with the public service, and then we'll move a motion.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, you will have an opportunity to rebut should you choose to, once we've heard from the public service. Okay. So, Mr. Havlicek, could you address Councilor White, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are some subcommittees that are working through the CAO's office. They are comprised of a number of different departments. I don't know to what level communications with the province is included there. But for the city itself, there's a number of us departments that are communicating on better strategies to deal with these problem properties.
And this is being led into the CEO's office, right? All right, and is there any political direction? Is there anybody from the mayor's office as part of the exercise?
Yeah. There have been meetings where we've apprised the mayor's office, but for the most part, it's the committee.
Administrative led.
Administrative.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Like Councillor, let Councillor Santos take the lead. I don't want
No, you're gonna do a great job. Go ahead.
to. No, it's your word.
You guys are good. You guys are good.
We're in trouble.
No, yeah, I think we're all.
It's a bit of a complicated.
All right, before we make any motions, I'll turn it over to the clerk to make sure that we're
Yeah, right.
process here.
If there's anybody else.
Thank you.
Sure. So just noting that there's no one else in the gallery in support or in opposition to this appeal, the appellant does have the opportunity to rebuttal, for rebuttal, rather. So if you wish to rebut any of the comments made, but no new information is permitted. If you don't want to, that's okay.
I'm just gonna go down here. Okay, I don't have any questions of the administration. I'm prepared to bring motions.
Okay, I just
I
want to make a
will
comment
need
here.
assistance though.
Before you make any motions, I mean, we have directed the public service through several committees, including this committee and community services to approach these types of situations firmly and aggressively. That leaves me with some apprehension about providing any more time, given these neighborhoods are, in some cases riddled with burnt out structures. However, at the same time, when we do have an applicant that, or an appellant that comes forward and is clearly willing to do the work, I do have some lenience in that case. But I mean, if this appears before us again, I don't know that I could support any further extensions or any of that type of, asks of the committee. So we'll wait and hear from Councillor Santos, and prior to that, I'll allow Councillor Wyatt to provide some comment.
Just in a way of supporting your comments, Mr. Chairperson, yeah, I would agree with you. I would implore either the city, well, both parties, city and applicant, if they're working together, that either party should clearly document every attempt, every date, every time attempting to reach the necessary authorities pertaining to, or the companies pertaining to the ability to go in, number one, and test if there's asbestos. And then once it's been determined, how to get it demolished, if it's asbestos or not related. Otherwise, I would agree with you, Mr. Chairperson, but if it could be demonstrated in the future, an order has to be issued But if the applicant's before us again and it says, well, I called on this date to try to get it tested and I couldn't get them in for another 45 days after this hearing date, and that delayed everything, then I would be very sympathetic to having to deal with this again. But if it's demonstrated that those are factors outside of either the city's control or the property owner's control, it sounds like to me there's an issue within that industry right now that we don't have our handle on. That there's a whole bunch of things going on in the city and they've got their hands full themselves, it sounds like, as companies. And so anyway, I just want to put those comments for the record, document the heck out of this. So, yeah.
I'd like to say that, having said that, when we're looking at the communication process, we are putting into question the process in general. So if that is the case, we're putting this on this developer or this homeowner, property owner, or in this case, I want to know what that means in terms of the process in general. Why is this one given extra obligation than every other interaction that we have regarding very similar circumstances? I don't understand why we would do it differently here than we would somewhere else. I'm not saying what we're doing is wrong, but due diligence by the department is due diligence by the department. And I do not understand why this one would be different. We'll have to discuss that because I don't think there's any way around that. We're saying in this case, we want to have documentation, document the heck out of it and prove that we've got mail communication. This will arise again if we don't have consistency in process that's known and acknowledged. I just want to put that out there. Why a double standard?
I don't think there is a double standard. I think that in defense of the department, they did all their work. That's what we're seeing right here. The appellant is saying that he didn't receive one letter, but there was the letter issued, Councillor Schreier. So I'm not really following where you're going with that.
So the letter was issued, but we're making a decision based on the idea that it wasn't.
I'm not. You might be.
Okay, but that is part of the process here. So we're asking to document, as Councillor Wyatt said, document the heck out of this. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but why are we doing it in this case and not others? My concern is we're doing something different here regarding mail communication that we don't do in other cases. I sympathize with the property owner in this case. What I'm saying is if we're going to bring in a different standard of communication, why in this case and then why not in others? And that worries me. That's all.
Well, and I don't know that I apologize. I don't know that there is a different standard of communication. October 25, November, January, February, all communication that the public service provided us with. They're saying right now that should we grant an extension of time, it would be the preference of Councillor Wyatt if he's going to move, or Councillor Santos or yourself, that the communication continue, which would be the practice of the department, because that's what they do.
The communication continue, that to me goes without saying. We're actually saying that it should be by registered mail, right? In this case, which is that's a special request. All right, so it's a special request. I don't
believe it is a special request.
Well, then the request was made. Specifically.
Every piece of mail was sent via registered mail, with the exception of the one that was hand delivered.
No, two. The one in that was hand delivered at the end of last year, and this one as well was not registered mail. This is regular mail.
Okay.
So that's the issue.
Yeah,
that's a separate motion that we should have a committee to make sure it's all registered mail.
It's a concern of mine that I just want to raise because if
you're saying there wasn't, sorry for contradicting.
If there wasn't due diligence, I don't know what that means for the future. Again, I'm not saying that there wasn't, and I do sympathize with the homeowner, property owner, and so we come to this. But bear in mind, if we're saying something special regarding the communication process in this case, I don't know what that'll mean for other appeals, and that's all.
Well, I mean, that's why we got to have a policy that's all registered mail, and then we don't have to get into this stuff. I just think it's done.
Yeah, and I do want to in proof of my sympathy for the owner, property owner here, he's thanking us for this. You know, he pays taxes whether sooner or later anyway. So we're paid to be here to facilitate this process. And I do recognize that the owner is being active on adhering to provincial workplace safety and health regarding the asbestos legislation imposed by the province, and yet difficult to adhere to, given the nature right now in this sector of asbestos reporting and mitigation.
Thank you, Councilor Trier. And with that, we'll turn to motions from the committee.
Pretty good arguments, all the way around. I don't know, put in a hard place here. I guess we'll go with, I heard from, so the clerk, I'm just gonna ask for your help on how I'm gonna deal with this. Okay, so I'll move that the receipt of public representation be concluded.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Okay, I appreciate the conversations that have happened between administration and the appellant. So I support Councilor the Chair's comments about, working with the property owner or the administration working with the property owner. So I'd like to cancel the order, but then put on the words on the record that few months is kind of about as tolerance that I have, being it's within the Point Douglas ward. And then if there's no movements, I would think that the department would issue orders in the future. So how would that look like as a motion?
Wouldn't say anything but adult.
So the motion would be to allow the appeal and cancel the order.
Okay.
They're very careful.
Just like that? Okay, so I move.
Do we have to put dates for when the extension is to?
No, we don't.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So the committee can cancel the order, or if you would like to uphold the order and grant an extension of time to do the work, you could, but then the order would remain. But there is an extension of time with respect to the date of compliance that is required.
Does not affect the fee. So if we go that route, the fee still applies.
Right. Right.
Because we can't appeal.
Yeah, the fees,
So we can cancel the order?
we can cancel the order, and does the fees get refunded?
There's no application fee, so
Oh, he hasn't paid at this point. Okay, it's because we're just dealing with the order itself.
So the question, I guess, if I may,
Yep.
is the department confident that it could administrate this to ensure that the intent is that in the event, let's say it's determined that you could demolish, in a certain amount of time, or start repair within a certain amount of time, and that in the event that does not occur, the department is capable of administering that to the effect of issuing another order if necessary.
100% we can do that.
Okay.
Okay,
Can we add that to the motion?
no,
I
but that was on the public record. Yeah, I feel confident in that. Okay.
God, I trusted Mr. Happy Shepherd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I move that the appeal be allowed and the order of the Enforcement Services Officers Development Inspections Division, Planning, Property and Development Department be cancelled.
Call the question on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried.
Please note the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal. So
Good job.
All right, and that completes our 5 items on the appeals hearing's agenda today. I'll call for
I move adjournment.
adjournment. All, Councilor Santos moves. All in favor?
I
All in favor?
of adjournment.
Opposed? That is carried. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your week.